folks, Ellie and I were talking about how most agents are useless and they take 10 to 15% for doing nothing. And I was just giving my hard earned, hard lived advice to Ellie of how I've engineered my own career. And when I've had these agencies, I still do. I've self engineered pretty much all of my deals and contracts.
I believe it.
It pains me as a child of immigrants that literally when I self-engineered my Al
Yeah,
Jazeera America job, I ended up giving 10% for no reason whatsoever to my agency at the time, CAA, which was like I should have might as well just burned the money just for fun.
yeah,
And so I'm telling Ellie's a writer in addition to being a great investigative reporter, in addition to being a transcriber. She wants to write screenplays and novels, and inshallah she will, and she will get paid very well. Until that happens, and as that happens,
yeah,
she is on these story. One of these stories that will not go away is the Epstein scandal. And at the left hook and over at Ellie's Panicked Writer, yes, there's a war, there's a trade war, our healthcare system is collapsing, there's climate change, all of that is happening. One of the big stories, though, that we have to concentrate on is still the Epstein scandal, because it's not just about Jeffrey Epstein. It's not just about the rape of girls. It's not just about accountability. We now see that this is essentially the Rosetta Stone to unlock an international cabal of the Epstein class, the 1% of the 1%, the broligarchy that is literally, Ellie, not just raping our girls, but raping our wealth, or like
yeah,
raping our
everything,
future.
everything. And
Everything.
you can look at like the war in Iran, or you can look at like the trade deficit. You can look at all these things, and you can literally like find an email somewhere in these Epstein files that has to do with specifically those issues. Like it connects everything. Like this was a man who was connected everywhere. And like today I posted that he, or last night that he was meeting at the Treasury in 2014. Like, why
Of
is he
course.
meeting the US Treasury? Like, why is this guy there? I shudder to think what he would be doing if he was still alive and unconvicted of anything. Like I just there's this whole investigation, and all the little fingers from it has opened my eyes to the idea that we're just living in a movie that we always thought we were living in, of like all the rich guys are bad guys, but like how connected it really was. Like I was reading Kate's article, Kate Justice, and I'm just at the beginning because it's so dense, it's so much information, but just like how incorporated Peter Thiel is into our entire United States government, how all the people came from his business to go work at all these different jobs under Donald Trump, and then they got these huge like lump sums of money back into his company, like just how corrupt. And I mean, on some level, they were right that we were just putzing around. The rest of America was just putzing around, thinking everything was fine, and they were just getting away with stuff. And so, like on the one side of things, I really don't want anybody to be arrested for the money and the trade secrets and the tax evasion. I want them to be arrested for child sex abuse. But on the other hand, like I want the whole thing exposed. Like I
Yep.
want the entire thing exposed and really just burned to the ground. And just like how ironic that this is the 250th anniversary of the making of this country, and here we are doing this again. Like this is absolute corruption on every level.
Kate, you were just given a shout out. Kate Justice
Yes.
just joined. Kate, about
Go read her article, like,
30 seconds
stat.
ago, Ellie just gave you a shout out. Kate, if you want to jump on, let me know. I know you're busy, but if you want to jump on and talk about it, we were literally just referencing you. Hey, Lev, how's it going?
I'm
I'll
in.
give preference to Kate first, Lev, not because I hate you, but because we were just talking about Kate right now, and her fantastic article. But speaking about it, I think yeah, the curtain it has been pulled. You see the wizards. The wizards are a bunch of dorky, corrupt vulgarians who are horny freaks and rapists. You see how that's all incestuous. It's an incestuous cabal of the same folks. They have their fingers, and this is a key point that what Ellie said and what Zev said yesterday. They have their fingers in everything, in national security. They have their fingers in killing the Me Too movement. They have their fingers in eugenics. They have their fingers in literally promoting bunk science, people who promote this eugenic science vis-a-vis Harvard and all these other elite universities. They had their fingers in crypto. They had their fingers in AI. They have their
AI.
fingers
Yep.
in mass surveillance, in Palantir. Peter Thiel. Who did he
Yep.
groom? JD Vance. He's literally groomed JD Vance's entire career. hand delivers JD Vance to who? Donald Trump. Who's the vice president? JD Vance. Who does JD Vance follow? Curtis Yarvin, this basement eugenics, doomsday type of philosopher who's also philosopher of choice of Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel's buddy is the czar of AI and crypto for Donald Trump. Who's that? David Sachs, who also is
Rewriting this down.
who also is their friend Elon Musk, part of the PayPal oligarchy. Who partied with
Yeah.
Epstein? Elon Musk. Who is the number one whisperer in the ear of Barry Weiss, who now runs CBS? David Sachs. Who is also in the advisory committee
How do
of
you do
Donald
this?
Trump and technology? Larry Ellison. Who is Larry Ellison? The founder of Oracle that just got massive contracts for doing the AI cloud of everything that's happening around the world. And also him and his son have bought Paramount, CBS, and they're about to buy Warner Brothers, and they bought TikTok. And he is one of the richest men on earth and the single largest private donor to the Friends of the IDF. And speaking about Israel, oh yes, who, Robert Maxwell,
Continue,
Ghislaine
continue.
Maxwell, who else? Wexner, Black, also Russia. Sorry, what did I miss, Ellie? And Kate, I'm about to invite you to say.
Yeah, bring Kate on, because like it's all like even just like the first like two paragraphs of her article is like this connects to this, connects to this, connects to this, and you're just like, oh, I'm so bummed out. Like this is awful, and it does. It connects back to Hood Brock. Like it's like right LinkedIn, and it's just
Lev, yes, Lutnick, Howard Lutnick, who is the Secretary of Commerce, who also is connected to crypto and Tether, who also lied about his relationship, both his personal and business relationship, to Epstein. It's so
Mhm.
disgusting. It's so gross. And then who did Donald Trump party with in Russia? Leon Black, who also gave hundreds of $1 millions to Jeffrey Epstein, as one does, Ellie.
Yes,
Kate, your
and is a
camera's off.
major sex offender. Yes. Can we see you, Kate? Can you hear us?
Bueller, Bueller.
Okay,
All
she
right.
said she left on
Oh,
accident. She's coming back.
all right, we'll invite you back. Real quick, uh, can you set Kate's Bill Barr thread up for us, real quick?
Okay, so Kate has been working on this article for I'm like not even through it. I was like power reading it while my
Oh,
kids
hey,
were going
Kate.
to the park.
All
So I'm
right.
just she has just written an article that is again like you said, it's like the article of your career. It is intense. I'm not even through it. Like I've started it and I'm like, no, I need to start that part over and reread it. Like
Well,
it's a
thank
lot.
you.
Okay.
So I was like messaging Ellie as I was writing this actually, because can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I had started to put some pieces together. I had learned about something called BCCI, and I am not from this world. So like a lot of this is very new to me. I was not alive during most of that stuff. Um, Sorry, my child's calling me right now. Um, and so when I started to learn about all of that, it was it was like the light bulb started to go off a little bit at a time. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. This sounds like exactly what Epstein was running. And I had literally just published a piece about Epstein and what I was kind of calling his shadow bank. And it was, like I said, it was just like all these pieces starting to come together. And then when I learned about like what the church committee had actually found, it was like, I can't believe this
You
is real. It was
explain what
almost like,
the committee is.
yes. So the church committee at first, I was like, does this have to do with churches? No. There was someone named Frank Church, and he investigated all of the intelligence components, because I'm not sure at what point like the OSS became the CIA and like all of that stuff. I'm still learning a lot of that. But apparently there was an investigation that came to light in the 70s that our government was essentially spying on us, and they were doing all of these illegal things that we have very explicitly in our constitution said we weren't supposed to be doing. You can see my little one, she's peeking behind me now. But all of these things that we weren't supposed to be doing, and all of this came to light. And as I was reading through all of these pieces that came to light, I realized that a lot of the same people were involved. So Donald Barr did not come up in this, but he was very specifically like had to have been the one. This is my Ellie, by the way.
Oh,
um,
hi.
yeah.
This
But
is baby and pet friendly, so don't worry.
yes.
Good.
But the she's distracting me, so now I lost my train of thought.
No, but
But
you're saying how it's all connected, and this goes before even
yeah, so
CIA.
Donald Barr, I'm realizing like he had to have been the one who was kind of pioneering these programs and things like that. And one thing that very specifically came up that they identified was the use of the schools, the Ivy League schools, to not only identify targets, but also to place them, so that's kind of like Epstein when, what I had learned is he had a teacher that was, hold on one second. Hey, Ellie, can you come out, babe? And can you come over here? Thank you.
And for those who don't know, Donald Barr is Bill Barr's father.
Yep.
Donald Barr was also part of an agency that later became the CIA. Donald Barr was the principal of Dalton, the elite private university in New York, and
Private
Donald Barr
school,
is the one who
K-12.
hired Epstein, even though Epstein really had no credentials to be a teacher
No.
at that school. For those who don't.
Right. Yes, because I get down my rabbit hole, and yes, a lot of people don't know this. This is not like common knowledge. So if you don't know, like, don't feel bad. This is not common knowledge. But Donald Barr was leaving his position at Dalton School that spring, and then Epstein had come in that fall. But it is said that he was the one that made those hiring decisions for Epstein. But when you look at it from an intelligence point of view, one thing I learned that they do in intelligence often is kind of trying to, what's the term I'm thinking of? Not suspension of disbelief, but like when you there's plausible deniability. That's what I'm looking for. And so they try very hard in everything that they do to make sure that there's just enough distance where it could be, but maybe it's not, so that's it made sense that he would leave and then Epstein would come in. He wrote this book. And for those who are not familiar, it's really wild. There's the
really
sci-fi.
wild.
This is how I started my Epstein.
So this is Donald Barr's book. Donald Barr wrote a book.
Donald Barr published a book. I think it was like 1973, maybe. And it's a sci-fi book called Space Relations. And this book is
Space Relations, a slightly gothic interplanetary tale.
Yes, thank you. That matters. Because there is essentially this sovereign planet that they have. There's they have all these planets, but there's this one planet that exists outside of their government reach, essentially. And they enslave young people for all kinds of things. Yeah, children, and enslave them not only to mine things, and sexual slavery, but the mining thing really got me too, because the mineral that they're mining on this planet is called weinsteinite. And I had to read that. I'm like, no, there's no way that's true. It is true. It's called weinsteinite, like Harvey Weinstein. And I'm like, there's just no way that he literally wrote us a blueprint of what they were doing, because then I had gone on, in my research for this particular article about the Barr family, I had found this email. What's his name? Lowell Wood, maybe? He's an inventor. And in this particular email, he was writing to Bill Gates, and I forget the other people in it, but it made its way to Epstein. And in this particular email, he was talking about how to position yourself just outside of, international waters so that you can essentially be a sovereign country of your own. And literally gave you the blueprints of how to do kind of what they did with this planet. And now it seems to me that all of these billionaires have started to build all the infrastructure that they'll need, and then they plan to essentially make themselves sovereign countries.
Yes,
and
sovereign nation states, free cities.
Yes, so then they will have their ability to do whatever the hell they want.
It's called Praxis. That's why they like Greenland also. They want to Prospera and Praxis, the free cities.
Yes.
And they want Greenland in particular because that's where you can make the test case for the cities. And then these cities will rise and they'll be without any accountability, and it's part of their future techno utopia in which these billionaires, I'm not making this up, folks, you know,
No, it's like all
billionaires
real.
will be in charge of these network states, and they'll all come together as a council, and they'll anoint one leader who kind of bows to them, and they'll parcel out the universe in basically fiefdoms in which they, the richest and the wealthiest, control.
Yes, and they have it's almost like they're a sovereign class, if you will, is kind of how I've started to describe them, because it's not even so much a nation at that point. It's like a class of people who get to do what they want because they have the ability to figure out how to do that. And like even Elon Musk has said, when he gets to Mars, his plan is to have their own law. They are not using Earth law. It will be his own Mars law, and they will adopt whatever they feel like. And I mean, to say this stuff out loud feels insane, but when you
All out
realize
there,
the
folks.
resources, yeah, and when you realize the resources that these people have, it's like you realize that they are at least really going to attempt it at the cost of whatever it takes, and it's terrifying.
So you're saying Donald Barr, again, folks. I know there's a lot, so
It's a lot, yes.
pardon me, Kate and Ellie, if I act like the local yokel, but it's
No.
just for
Yeah, right.
myself and for everyone else. Donald Barr basically worked at what later became the CIA. Gets a job as headmaster of Dalton, a prestigious creme de la creme, 1% of the 1% private school in New York. In that headmaster position, he hires Jeffrey Epstein, a man with no college degree, from middle class working background who should have never gotten the job. He gets the job, uh, and then Jeffrey Epstein, through his Dalton connections, meets a lot of the major players. I'm forgetting the name. I think it's Ace Greenberg. He meets some
Yes.
from Bear Stearns.
Yep.
And that begins his journey into this world of the wealthy folks. As David Cleon has said, he's Jewish American, wrote for the Jewish Currents. He talked about how Jeffrey Epstein used his background as like a working class Ashkenazi Jew, and that kind of became this kind of a communal bond. Oh, this guy reminds me of me. Okay, cool. He kind of leaned into that, gets into Bear Stearns, right? Then gets all these connections and keeps failing up somehow. Kate and Ellie keeps failing up, even though it's revealed again and again and again that this guy's a fraudster and a liar. But he just keeps getting a pass for some strange
Right.
reason. And Bill Barr, Donald Barr's son, is Bill Barr. Bill Barr is the Attorney General of Donald Trump. And one of the last people to see Jeffrey Epstein before he suicided himself, Kate, was Bill Barr. Can you explain
Mhm.
that?
So, as far as I know, Bill Barr was the attorney general when Epstein committed suicide. And I'm trying to think what are the most important things to mention about that. Um, uh, uh, I think with Donald Barr, I just want to take it back to him for 1 second. With Donald Barr, the other important thing to understand about all of this is the Trump factor. And that's just because when I was going back through, so I went through newspaper articles about him and everything, and the things that comes up is just his belief that the president should have full and total authority. They should be the executive branch. There should be nobody that has say over them, and they should get to do what they want. And I think at the end of the day, that is the agenda that Donald Barr has passed on to his son, and so on and so forth. And when Donald Barr, I think his son had joined the CIA or something right when he was leaving Dalton or something, but there's like all of this overlap. And the other important time is that sorry, like a friend of mine today told me, she was like, when you lose your thought, I call it my CD skipping. And it's like my
No,
brain's
no,
like all
we'll
over
come
the
back to
place.
it. I just want people to know. I know there's a lot, so I'm just trying to create a through line. Kate has this piece out called "Is the Barr Family?" It's not just Donald, but also his son Bill Barr, again, who's the Attorney General for Trump, blocking the Epstein investigation because it would expose what's being built right now. And what is being built right now? And Kate, I swear to God, I did not even read your piece. Ellie was talking about it. And then when I was going on my rant about Peter Thiel and David Sachs, that's just because I'm a nerd and I know these connections. And then you came on, and then as you were talking, I read your first paragraph. It's Donald Barr envisions in a fictional novel in the 70s, which is called Space Relations, a slightly gothic interplanetary tale. which was written in 1970s, literally maps out what exactly Epstein was doing on the islands and what the oligarchy who were in bed with Epstein are now planning to do with the world. It seems, I don't know, Kate and Ellie, a little on the nose. I mean, Ellie, your take
I
on this.
mean, I there's this it's that magical, mysterious period of time in Epstein's life where, he graduates early, he goes to Europe on his own at, like, 17 years old. Nobody knows what he's doing there. He just goes, he apparently lives on $2 a day, supposedly, and then when he came back, he brought a woman back with him, which is interesting, and then people said he was different. Something was different about him when he got back. He gets hired at the Dalton School, no degree. He dropped out of college. I think he did 1 or 2 years in college. Gets hired at this school that is $70,000 a year, K-12 now. So it is prestigious. Couple years in, they feel like he's not qualified to be a teacher, which I don't know why they didn't know that in the first place. He starts out of getting fired at the Dalton School, he has this massive slew of CEOs who are like, "Come to my place. No, come to my place." So he's got Bear Stearns vying for him, but he's also got the New York Times trying to hire him. Arthur Sulzberger was also trying to hire Epstein out of the Dalton School. He then goes to Bear Stearns a few years later. They said he got fired, but he was still really close with all these people. I don't really know the terms of how he left there, but then again, he has this mysterious period of time right after where he disappears off the map and starts going to Europe and the Middle East. And then that kind of leads into that period of time where we don't know what was happening, if he was on Hilton Head Island and all that stuff. But like, he has something that's going on in the Middle East and Europe that he keeps bouncing back for. And my assumption is that first trip, however he got there, for whatever purpose he got there, there was grooming happening that early on. He came back and all of a sudden he had connections to everything, like very young. I mean, he's not Donald Trump. He's not from a prestigious family. His dad was like a local, street
Working
cleaner, that
class.
kind of thing. Yeah, his mom was a para ed. Like, he didn't have the resources, but he was like born kind of conniving and wanting. Like, his friends were like, he just wants to be rich. He wants to be a millionaire. He wants to like take over the world. And he made that happen. And so we don't know what happened in these blocks of time, but Donald Barr gave him the job, and then immediately after left the school was like, I don't want to work here anymore, left and starts doing all this wacky stuff. And he meets Bill Barr during that time, and they've had
Can I
a
ask you,
very long relationship.
thank you so much for that, Ellie, and it's
Yeah.
very helpful for me also. I know it's a lot because with the through line. And
Yeah.
can I ask you this question? Because
Yep.
I've always gone back to the Donald Barr of it, and I've always asked, why would Donald Barr, who is connected to the CIA, give this guy a chance and give him a chance to meet up in that? And I just put my hat on, I'm like, okay, let me imagine. Suppose I'm in the CIA, or what later becomes the CIA. I'm always looking for assets, Kate. And
Yep.
if I see someone talented who is a grifter, who's also a potential pedophile, I would say, you know what? Maybe I can use him as my honeypot, and maybe I can unleash him
So
and get powerful people.
I do have somewhat of an answer to that. I was trying to look up my notes so I can get some of this right because it's complicated. But this goes back to what the Church Committee had discovered. So they had discovered that the CIA was actually recruiting through the schools. And one of the programs that Bill Barr specifically ran was a program targeting gifted children that were in the boroughs who were, more of a disadvantaged family. So they weren't the normal families that you would go after. So he almost had scouts, like other teachers, looking for these gifted children. And Epstein, in his birthday letter, so if you go back through that birthday book, there is a letter, I think it was from a Dr. Stephen Levy or something, and he talks about being one of Epstein's teachers when Epstein was around 10 years old or something, and recognizing this exceptional talent. Well, this particular person, Levy, was tied to Columbia University. He was part of that teachers college. When Barr was there, all of this makes sense. So I am willing to bet Epstein was identified as a gifted child. He was very musically and mathematically gifted. and he performed constantly. He was really out there with that. And this teacher, I believe, spotted him, and that's how he got into that Interlaken, because I believe he had gone there as well. And that was not cheap. And so I think he had all of these connections. And then where'd my timeline go here? I was just looking at it. But
And folks, the Kate's article is fantastic. It's going to require a deep dive, so I've linked to it like 3 times. But
it's a lot.
and we're just teasing it out here. We're teasing it out,
Yeah.
the broad sketches, so you can go dig deeper. But then,
Right.
why would Kate then bill Barr as the Attorney General, right? Because it's something Ellie and I have talked about a lot. Ellie's brought it up. I talked about it. Lev, Zez brought it up. Why would Bill Barr go and personally meet Jeffrey Epstein, and then just a couple of days later, Jeffrey Epstein suicides himself?
Well, that is a great question. But what I have determined is that all of those things, those programs, right, that were illegally happening, I believe that Epstein took over some of those. So there was this person, Edwin Wilson, and he was essentially useful until he wasn't useful. So he got away with everything. He ran a lot of financial vehicles that the CIA used until he got caught, and then they threw him under the bus. I mean, sounds familiar, right? And so that was what I believe Donald Barr created, and then William Barr was set to protect, because when the church committee came in and they realized all of this, the people involved in that, a couple of them were fired, and they were like, nobody was supposed to know this. You guys gave up way too much information. None of this should have come out. And so now they have essentially spent the rest of their lives trying to cover everything up because they continued it. So it goes back to something called BCCI. This was a bank that collapsed. I forgot what year it was. Maybe it was the early 90s. I don't remember exactly when it was, because I have all these things in my head now. But this particular bank was very illicit.
1991. I'm reading your
Yes.
own article.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
When BCCI finally collapsed in 91 after regulators in 7 countries seized its branches simultaneously, the Kerry Committee spent 2 years documenting what it actually had been.
Yes. And one of the things that they determined was this particular bank was illegally trafficking young girls for elite clients. And this is all documented stuff. So I think what was happening was that Epstein was taking this over, essentially. I think a lot of these things, and then Edwin Wilson, right at that time, that mystery time, Ellie, that you're like, oh, what was he doing? That was when Edwin Wilson was being thrown in jail, I believe. So I think Epstein was kind of taking over for that.
Yeah, that would make sense.
And so Epstein leaves Bear Stearns in March 81, founds Intercontinental Access Groups in August 81. The same year, the Army created the Intelligence Support Activity to rebuild Task Force 157's capabilities. This is from Kate's piece. His stated business model of recovering embezzled funds for governments and wealthy clients was identical to Wilson's. So
Yes.
Wilson essentially goes, and then Epstein comes in right literally at the same time and following the same business model. And we know that before he meets Ghislaine Maxwell, the way he further ingratiates himself with the wealthy classes, Epstein says, I can find your missing money. I can be the guy who hunts it down and retrieves assets. And he was somewhat successful, and people are like, this man is brilliant. He does it. And then, of course, he meets Ghislaine Maxwell, whose dad mysteriously dies. Robert Maxwell, who was a first-class swimmer, just found drowned next to his yacht. Totally makes sense, right, Ellie?
Yeah. No. No, but he fell off the Lady Ghislaine in middle of the night when he was going to the bathroom. It's no big deal. Fully unclothed. It's fine.
And then through Ghislaine, then all of a sudden, all that wealth goes where, Ellie?
Yeah. Oh, it disappears. They're poor. That's what Ghislaine Maxwell says. We were penniless. And her poor mother was penniless. Her mother was left out of everything. But that money that he had pilfered off of his, the pensions of all the people that worked for him at his publishing house, which was basically a front, kind of disappeared. It was $500 million and it disappeared. And guess who became an immediate $500 million? Jeffrey Epstein.
Shocking. Shocking. And then, why I think it's so important, Kate, that
just on that one thread, that, who was also a client at Bear Stearns when Epstein worked there was Robert Maxwell.
Oh, yeah. Early. Very
Yes.
early.
So he was a client there when Jeffrey Epstein worked there, because in the birthday letters, there is a letter where someone is asking him if that was when he met the teenage Maxwell, I think
the teenage daughter of Robert Maxwell was in 1976, I think, or 77.
And I think there's another really important point here, how it's all connected is, I really appreciate Kate talking about BCCI's role in this. Bank of America just last week, what was a $90 million settlement with Epstein survivors. Another bank that for some strange reason we don't talk about enough, JP Morgan, that continued doing business with Epstein after he was a convicted pedophile. JP Morgan made a lot of money through a business deal that Epstein did with Glenn Dubin, the billionaire. Glenn Dubin's wife is Eva Dubin. Eva Dubin used to be Jeffrey Epstein's girlfriend. Eva Dubin and Glenn Dubin, another conduit that they used for this was a Mount Sinai Hospital. The Dubins gave millions of dollars to create the cancer wing of the Mount Sinai Hospital. And through Mount Sinai, as we know now from independent reporting, which the New York Times and 2 months later did a piece on recently, Jeffrey Epstein and his cabal of billionaires were able, once they did damage to these girls, raped them, assaulted them, they got backdoor access to first-class doctors from Mount Sinai.
Yeah.
So you got Bear Stearns, BCCI, Deutsche Bank, Bank of America. The Rothschild Bank is now being investigated as of last week in France, folks. And then you have JP Morgan.
Yep.
Then you have all the schools. You have Harvard. You have,
all of the schools.
MIT,
There's a report
Columbia.
that I want to try. I'm sure it's classified still, but it's a report that was done specifically. I believe it was by the church committee, that was specifically on how they used the schools, but it's classified. So I am still going to try to request it, though.
It's fantastic. I could go on forever, but I promised only 30 minutes. I hope you all can come back next week, Kate. I remember we were on once before. I'm so glad, like Ellie, your investigative reporting and Substack is blowing up in the best of ways possible. So anyone who follows the Left Hook, and Ellie, please support Kate. It's look, there's some people, like I said this before, I talked to Ellie and a few other people about this. There are vultures who in every industry, and there are people who always want to jump on a controversy and be first. They want to get the scoops. And with the Epstein crisis, there are certain journalists who I won't name who want to elbow other people. Their main goal is not justice and accountability. It's just, I want to be the first. But then there's others like Ellie and Kate who actually care, and Zev and others. And I feel like, they work together, they help each other out, they're trying to get to justice and accountability and transparency. What I always believed is they will find their own audience. People can tell the difference between the Michael Wolff grifters and the people who care. But the final point, because I keep mentioning it, I wanted to talk to him about Zev about Michael Wolff, and I said I'll talk about Michael Wolff. Real quick, in 2-3 minutes, can you tell us why Michael Wolff is such a shady character, Ellie?
Well, actually, yes, I can. So I'm continuing to go through his emails.
Okay.
Okay. Very clearly in all of his emails, he was what Michael Cohen was to Donald Trump, Michael Wolff was to Jeffrey Epstein. He was his fixer. He was crushing stories all over, like silencing journalists, crushing stories. He was making sure he was helping wipe the internet of Epstein's reputation so that he can come out as a philanthropist. There was this big article coming out, and Epstein's writing to him going, what is this big part of all this, philandering women? What is this? Women and girls, where did this come from? And Michael Wolff's going, oh, sorry, my editor added that in. She's a woman. I'll take care of it. Like, there's just so much. Michael Wolff's helping him hire young assistants. She's 24. You'll really like her. Like, not her skills, not anything else. Like, this is what she looks like, and this is how old she is. And then we found things that are potentially very, very illegal that I haven't shared online yet because I'm trying to figure out what I'm looking at. And again, I'm only like 300 pages into like 1,800 pages of emails. Like, it is complicated. Those interviews that he has 100 hours of interviews. I get that there's ethics about subpoenaing journalists, but, like, when it is to the detriment of hundreds of girls. Like, hundreds of girls were harmed, and you have information to put people in jail and to find justice for people who are not even alive anymore. There are girls who are gone. Like, that should come out on top of what are the ethics of subpoenaing, journalistic information. And so I'm continuing to just dig into that. We're trying to like we're trying to loop in Joanna Coles and talk to her a little bit and see where her head is with all of this, because I know she's basically the mouthpiece for Michael Wolff right now. And so many people who are giving him a platform refuse to look at the information that we have and just like, here it is. It's very black and white. And so that's, yeah,
Uh,
continuing to work on that
and hey, Denver Riggleman has joined us. Have
again.
Kate and Ellie on, but I will say this: we were right about Michael Cohen. We warned you. Like I've told you before, I have nothing personal against him, but now you see it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people still give him money. uh, Michael Wolff, I had him on twice before the latest Epstein Files batch came out. In both times, I asked him, "You have hundreds of hours of personal conversations with Jeffrey Epstein. You have played one of these audio clips in which Jeffrey Epstein said he was Donald Trump's closest friend. You have told me that Jeffrey Epstein told you that him and Donald I'm going to use the word raped girls, and I said they chased girls. And what was the age of the girls? 14 to 19. That's rape.
Yeah.
So I've asked him twice, both times he's been on, why don't you just release those audio files? And he says, well, I've tried. I've offered it to
Nobody wants
and
them.
nobody wants it. And I
Yeah.
said, I'll get Ellie and Zev, and I'll get Kate. We'll do it for free. We'll make a
Yep.
Substack.
Yep.
And we'll
I'll
literally,
transcribe them. I'll put them out.
Ellie's a nerd. She'll do it. I just offered up Ellie. Ellie's a nerd. She'll do it for
Nice.
free. And he's like, whoa, ooh, So I'm telling y'all, if you
Yeah.
give money to Michael Wolff and Michael Cohen, take that money out, give that to Ellie and Kate.
Or just somewhere good. Something's
There's
just doing
lots
good
of
in the world.
people. We
It's
appreciate
stop,
it,
Yeah.
but
stop. Don't
yes,
say anything,
there's
folks. Let me do this. Let me do this. Ellie, Kate, just nod. Just right now, you just have to nod. Just let me do this for you. Give money to Kate
Yeah.
because you remind me of me. I just give money to Kate and Ellie instead. Subscribe, become
Well,
paid subscribers. They're independent. Kate, this is where you now shamelessly promote yourself.
Yeah.
I'm getting better at that, but really I do this because it matters. There is a lot of shit that needs to come to light, and I do this because there is we've we've created an environment where the average person doesn't feel invited to the conversations because they feel like I don't know who these people are. I don't have time to learn all of this. Knowledge is a privilege that not everybody gets. So
Absolutely.
if you want to have almost like a translator and someone that you can be comfortable asking questions with, that's me. Like, there is no stupid questions. Come ask away. We will get you answers. And then, of course, I have this new piece about the Barr family that I really think puts into perspective who Jeffrey Epstein was and what is happening in our current government and why that's happening. So there's a
Great piece.
lot to it,
Great
but
piece.
it's important.
I'm putting that piece up right now. Ellie, shamelessly promote yourself.
Yeah, I'll say real quick, one thing that I forgot is that Michael Wolff was actually using his interviews as leverage against Stephen Bannon, because I just found an email like right before we came on where he was telling Epstein, I have the interview, you can show it to him. That will make him then he won't deny anything. So he's using them for leverages too. So there's multi purposes. So anyway, I'm on the Panicked Writer here on Substack, doing the same thing with Kate. We're all kind of night owls. I think we sort of get in cahoots, 2, 3 in the morning. But you can find me here. You can find me on YouTube under the Panic Writer, and then I'm Red Pencil Script everywhere else. Where are
And for
you
the
at?
nearly 2,000 people who joined us, right before Kate jumped on, Ellie and I were spitballing, and we are just talking about this incestuous cabal, talking about how Palantir is connected to Peter Thiel, is connected to J.D. Vance, is connected to Curtis Yarvin, is connected to this techno-fascist utopia, is connected to Epstein, connected to eugenics, connected to these financial institutions. Then Kate jumps on. She goes, well, I just wrote this massive piece that connects it all and takes it back to Bill Barr's father, Donald Barr. oh, the guy who worked for the CIA who just happened to hire Jeffrey Epstein, who did not have a college degree for one of the most prestigious universities, and through those connections, Jeffrey Epstein then gets into Bear Stearns. So it sounds like a lot, folks. And last thing I'll say is I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I always try to bring facts, and when there's conjecture or ideas or thoughts or opinions, I say this is what I assume. But this is you've
Yes.
literally now seen it. Like every week now, it's all coming out. They're investigating in France the Rothschilds. They're investigating Andrew, who's no longer a prince. They're investigating Lord Mandelson, who's no longer a lord. Bank of America just paid out a settlement. Right. This goes deep. It's an international cabal. It's the
It is.
Epstein class, and these people have gone away raping our girls and our wealth, and they want to rape our futures. It's happening in real time, which is why it is a very, very important story. And guess who is mentioned more than any other person in the Epstein files? The commander in chief. That's Donald Trump. And who is his Secretary of Commerce? Howard Lutnick, who also did business with Jeffrey Epstein.
And was his neighbor.
Yep.
You can't make this shit
You
up.
literally cannot make this shit up. I actually said that in my article. I do not curse very often when I write.
Me either, because we got kids.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you just kinda get used to not doing it, but I did. I just said when I mentioned the wines tonight, I said, "It really fucking is wines tonight, and you can't make this shit up." And, like, you just can't. So,
You literally can because it's not made up. It's right there,
it's not.
and they
It's
were
real.
doing it in front of her. And I'll just end on this point that Ellie made. It's a good point, Ellie, because you talked about it, is like everything we always thought, but we didn't know. But you had a feeling, right? You had a feeling, but like that's too much. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Sounds conspiratorial. The Epstein files, the Epstein class is that Rosetta Stone that
It
makes
is.
you realize we weren't crazy. It literally is the world's worst people. And to quote George Carlin, it's a big club and we ain't in it. Thank you, Kate. Thank you,
God.
Ellie, so much.
Thank you very
For
much for
those who joined
inviting
us
me.
late, this will be up on Kate's Substack. Go
Yep.
subscribe. It'll be on Ellie's Substack. Go subscribe. It's the Left Hook. Thank you all for watching. Take care of yourselves. Be kind. And please, oh, please don't be a fascist.
Yeah.
Okay, later.
I got it. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Oh, no.
I don't
We're
know how to
filming each other.
leave.